This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about fun with lint brushes, front doors that move around, and how corporations are still behaving badly. All that and more as we watch Season 3, Episode 4 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. We are so happy to be back this week. My name is Sophia. I am one of your hosts, and joining me as every week is my brother and co-host. What's up, Imran?
What's up, sister? You caught me at a great time. I just remembered back in the late 90s, I bought a bunch of stock and forgot about it.
Oh, yeah? What'd you get? Anything good?
It was this company. It seemed really promising. It was called pets.com. So I'm just checking in now. I forgot about this for like 25 years. I'm pulling up the website. Let's see how my money is. And they folded in 2000.
Oh, boy. Okay. How much are you out?
It was only $50. They had a sock puppet. It seems so promising.
Always put your money on the sock puppets.
Always bet on the sock puppet, but the stock market is fickle. We all know that.
Very fickle, and that is so apt for today's podcast, because today we are talking about Perfect Strangers Season 3, Episode 4, titled Taking Stock. And if you were to open the TV guide in 1987, you would see the description for this episode, which read, Balky gets a taste of corporate greed when he buys stock in a cereal company that manufactures Raisin Puffs without the promised number of raisins in each box.
Oh, that's going to be a problem. I can see that being a problem. The show, of course, starring the hilarious Bronson Pinchot and Marklyn Baker, and our favorite girls, Rebecca Arthur as Marianne, Melanie Wilson as Jennifer Lyons. And how do you know that these girls are on the show? Because for the first time, Sophia, their credits are up front in the beginning of the show during the opening titles. Fantastic.
And how nice for these women, not girls.
Yes. Well, they're lovely women.
Lovely women, yes. And that's true. We have their name in the opening credits for the first time.
Also, we're going to meet a bunch of guest cast this episode. Alan Hofrecht playing Mr. Crocker. You're going to meet Jeff Corey playing Henry Castleman. You've seen this guy in a lot of things. And a couple of guys playing security guards, Gene LaBelle, Greg Collins. We will talk about them later, but a lot of guest cast here.
And one woman, Barbara Sharma.
Oh, and Barbara Sharma as the secretary, Miss Abrams.
Yes. This episode aired on October 7th, 1987. Let's get into Act 1. We open in the apartment, as we often do. Larry's like in the middle of the living room with this very 1980s, like huge stereo system thing, and he's hooking up wires. I guess they got a new stereo system. There's no other discussion of this, but
that stereo was already sitting back there in the previous 3 episodes. Was it just not plugged in this whole time? That they just like,
maybe it's broken and he was fixing the wires. I actually don't know why they even had that, but maybe just to highlight that there's a plastic covering to it, which becomes part of the story later on.
Oh, yeah. Maybe, but they were like, we need Larry doing something at the top of this.
Yeah,
what do you think?
So anyway, that's what he's doing.
Okay.
I don't know. It was pretty random. Felt pretty random to me, but
yeah.
So anyway, he's busy doing something. Balky busts in the apartment, very excited, telling Larry that this is the day they're going to find out how to get rich. And he said this letter came in the mail, and he pulls it out and he starts to read it out loud, but he's reading very slow with a heavy accent. And Larry gets frustrated, grabs the letter, and he starts reading it out loud for him. And then it turns into this very funny, like paired reading where Larry reads most of the words and Balky interjects with a word here and there at just the right moment. It's like a tag team reading.
Yeah.
So that's the fun little opening gag. But anyway, the content of the letter is it's just a flyer about a housewife from Arkansas who invested $500 in the stock market and made millions, and they can too. Ooh. So the point is, Balky is very interested and excited about investing in the stock market.
Well, but Larry scoffs, tells him, throw that thing away, Balky. Forget about the stock market. You know nothing about it. Don't get involved. And Balky goes, well, of course I do. Don't be ridiculous. On me, boss, I sell my sheep at the stock market. And Larry's like, Balky, no.
It's a different stock market.
It's a different stock market. In America, the stock market, you buy and sell shares in businesses. And Balky goes, well, that sounds a little more exciting than our stock market.
And then he goes, I bet it smells better too, huh?
Yes.
So Larry tells him how it works. He explains it all, but he emphasizes that there's no way of knowing whether your stock will go up and down. So once again, he tells Balky to forget about it. And he says, it's very complicated. You could lose your shirt. And then Balky looks at his shirt a little confused, and Larry sees him. He's like, your money. You could lose your money. And he says in a very authoritative Larry-splaining way, you're not going to invest in the stock market, and that's that. And then Balky says, oh, that's that. Is that?
Is that? I love that.
And Larry's very clear. He's like, I'm not going to help you lose your money. And then Balky, who's caught on to the best ways to manipulate Larry by now, he says, all right, fine, no skin off my head, which of course means no skin off my back, which in itself is a weird expression.
Yeah, it sounds painful.
No skin off my head. And he goes, I'll just go ask Marianne to help me lose my money.
Larry is really determined to not even let Balky try or help him learn about that. It's a lot. Remember, in Vegas, he's like, okay, I'm not going to let you lose your money. Okay, now I'm going to help you lose your money. So you learn how he's all over
Larry's
the place.
Always trying to teach Balky things.
He always thinks he knows best, but he does finally reluctantly agree to help Balky. He caves.
Well, he caves because the alternative, Balky played a trick on him. He caves because he's like, don't go ask Marianne.
He's like,
yes.
You know what? I'll help you.
Which actually, though, at the end of the day, I think I could see Marianne being a secret stock shark, a trader, investor, hotshot, and she probably has a secret huge portfolio that's making millions.
I feel like she'd be really good at Texas Hold'em poker, also great poker face, right? So Balky tricks Larry into helping him, and Larry's like, "All right, come over here. Let's go to the kitchen." He opens up the newspaper where they shows him the page with the listing of the stocks. And now everybody has seen this page. It's very tiny letters, lots of rows and columns, and you can't make heads or tails of it. So he's just like, here, pick one. I'm like, this is not helpful, Larry Appleton. But then Larry goes, here's one I heard good things about. It's called Unicorn. Bucky goes, oh, I like unicorns. He goes, you said they don't sell animals. You tried to fool Bucky. As Larry explains that it stands for United Corn Corporation. He says they make breakfast foods like sugar oatsies and raisin poofs. And Bucky goes, oh, raisin poofs are my favorite. Favorite. And he does a little song and dance and sings the jingle of a raisin poofs, holding up, and then he holds up a finger on his head like a unicorn.
You get 100 raisins in every box of unicorn raisin poofs.
And then he goes, and the audience just loves it.
Loves it.
As he does a horse sound and pretends to be a unicorn.
So Larry's like, okay, cool. How much money do you want to invest? And Balky pulls out some cash from his pocket and he goes, $38. And Larry's like, all this for $38? He's completely exasperated. Yeah, $38, all this. And then Balky goes into his other pocket and pulls out a dime and he goes, and 10 cents.
Oh, that makes it better.
So Larry says he will lend Balky $1.90, rounding it up to $40, and Balky can buy one share.
$40 a share is expensive for a unicorn. Okay.
I have zero context for how much
it seems like that's a lot. But Balky goes, cousin, isn't it wonderful? An hour ago, I was a babe in the woodpile. I don't know nothing about the stock market, and now thanks to you, I'm on my way to becoming a business typhoon. And this is fantastic. This is some self-aware meta writing we have not seen. He goes, I'm on my way to becoming a business typhoon. And Larry goes, Balky, a typhoon is. And Balky cuts him off. He goes, tropical storm. I know that. I was just kidding. Cut me some slack, cousin.
Yeah, so now
I was like, what? It just happened there.
Got you Larry twice already in this episode. Once when he says he's going to go get go ask Marianne for help. And now this like little gag about, of course, I know I said it wrong on purpose.
Oh my God. So now I'm going to wonder all the time, does he know he's saying things wrong? He's like self-aware and using it. That was fantastic. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was so good.
He also says this thing, a babe in the wood pile. And I believe the phrase is babe in the woods, but maybe it can be
babe in the woods
too.
is an innocent person in a thing. But then there's a devil in the woodpile. I know is the name of a rockabilly band I used to follow.
Maybe
but
it's a mix of something else with woodpile. I don't know.
I feel like, I think you're right.
So then we have like a total blackout commercial break, which typically means that that's the end of Act 1. But this episode is a little weird. It's like really early. So maybe they had a commercial in the middle of a very long Act 1 and they only had 2 acts in this whole episode.
No, that's the end of Act 1. There's 3 acts. You got it right.
There's 3 acts, but the first act was really short, and it doesn't end in the right place in terms of story structures, etc.
Yes, they're just.
So it's like a weird. Yeah. It's a
short first act.
So okay, so we'll call that Act 1.
Act 1 ends. Listener, if you want to join the conversation and keep up with us as we record these episodes, we record them a little bit early, a couple of weeks early before they come out. But if you join our Facebook group, it's called Dance of Joy Podcast Facebook group. That's where I will post the episodes we're recording that week, and you can leave comment, your observations, questions about that episode.
And you can also chat with each other about your thoughts. We have a nice discussion going about this episode among three or four of our listeners, I think. So thanks for that. Thanks for those comments.
The Dance of Joy pod community is growing over there on the Facebook group. I couldn't be more happy. Join it today. Act 2, sister.
Yes.
Starts in the apartment as Balki and Larry are dressed for a nice night out. They're going on a date with Jennifer and Marianne.
They have dinner reservations.
And Larry takes the lint brush from Balki, starts cleaning him quickly because the girls are going to be there any minute. Balki tells Larry he has a surprise for him and then leads him over to the back wall just above where the stereo is.
Yes.
And they turn and they face the wall. We see their backs as they look at a single frame certificate.
Yeah. So like this weird setup that you don't see in multicam comedies too much, where the actor's back is to the audience.
And they're delivering lines to the back wall, just completely opposite. So Balki goes, I got my unicorn stock certificate. And they both turn their backs at that time and stare at the certificate. And Larry just goes, and you framed it.
So then they turn back around because you can't have too many lines facing away from the audience. They turn back around to face the camera, and Balki says, isn't it beautiful? And Larry is super not supportive. He's being sarcastic. He's like, yeah, it brightens up the whole room. And Balki takes it as a compliment, of course. But as he's waving his hand around, Balki has the lint brush again, and it accidentally rubs Larry's jacket. He's in this black blazer, and it leaves a little lint on it. And then we have this little exchange with no words at all. Just facial expressions and the lint brush. So Balki takes the lint brush and goes to remove the lint, but actually more lint comes off the lint brush onto the jacket. And Larry just gives him this look. And then Balki goes in the reverse direction and all the lint comes off.
Like magic.
And then like magic. And then he starts having fun and makes a game out of it. You can see his face light up. And he goes in the reverse direction and the lint is on his lapel again, and then he takes it off and he's about to keep going, and Larry just grabs him and grabs his arm, takes the brush. He's like, we have to.
I think this is a great example of their classic chemistry, classic Perfect Strangers comedy. I love the lint routine because who hasn't done that? I remember them it's like magic. You're like, oh, it came off, oh, it goes back on, oh, it comes back on, goes back on. I've done that. It's hilarious.
And you can do that for all day.
Yeah, you can do that all day. It's like magic. I make it disappear. Just then, Jennifer and Marianne arrive wearing these crazy 80s pastel, big-shouldered evening dresses with big skirts, and their hair is vertical.
Oh yeah, frilly skirt. One of them has frills on the skirt. Yeah, exactly.
One's in a light blue. One's in a Easter yellow or something. And Balki and Larry open the door, and they both go, hi, at the same time. Larry tries to compliment Jennifer and goes, you look stunning. That's your color. Jennifer goes, I borrowed this dress from Marianne.
Fail, Larry, fail. He tried.
He tried. And then Balky tells the girls he has a surprise for them. And then Marianne goes, oh, no, don't tell me. Let me guess. And then they just stand there. Nobody says anything for like a while, like almost like 2 seconds.
They all just look at her.
And then she says nothing, and Jennifer goes, no sense in hurting yourself, Marianne. Why don't you just let Balky tell us? That was hilarious.
So Balky's like, better yet, I'll show you. And he grabs both the girls by the waist, one in either arm.
And picks them up, right?
Picks them up off the ground and like farmers carries them to the back wall and sets them down in front of that frame certificate. So now all 4 of these actors have their backs to the camera. Looking at the wall upstage at the certificate. And Marianne's like, what are we supposed to be looking at?
What is this?
And, Larry tells them that Balky bought a share in a share of a stock share. What is it called? Bought 1 share in a company. And Balky says, this is it. I own a piece of America. And they congratulate him. So it's like very special for him, right? Like any of these rituals of becoming American.
The driver's license, it's up there with all those things.
So they turn around to face the cameras. And then Balky goes into the unicorn like marketing spiel. He says to the girls, we at Unicorn make many fine products for the home, but the backbone of our company is Raisin Poofs, the cereal chock full of naturally sweet raisins. Raisins, they're nature's candy. It's like a total like company spiel, as if he is actually a part owner of the company.
You know what else is more like nature's candy, though? Dates. I think dates are more nature's candy than raisins. Yeah. Figs are nature's candy. Ooh, honey is nature's syrup. Even syrup is nature's syrup. Wait a minute.
Sugar cane, yeah.
Raisins, dried up grapes. So you're giving them a second chance. Whatever.
So Marianne just casually says, they're about to leave for this dinner, and Marianne casually says, I used to eat Raisin Poofs. And she pronounces it like Balky does. She says Raisin Poofs. But I don't anymore because there aren't enough raisins. And Balky is like, that's impossible. And he runs to the kitchen. And as he's running to the kitchen, he says, Raisin Poofs guarantees. He stretches out this word. 100 raisins in every box. And he pulls out from the kitchen cupboard a brand new box of Raisin Puffs. And he shows them that it's written right there on the box. Like it says 100 raisins in every box. And he says, so you see, Raisin Poofs without the raisins is like Snow White without her 7 dorks.
Dorks.
He means dwarves.
He got close, starts with a D. Jennifer then goes, look, Marianne may have been mistaken. And Balky's like, you bet your bottom digda she was.
That is so funny. You bet your bottom dollar becomes your bottom
Oh, bottom dollar. Right, bottom dollar.
You bet your bottom dollar. You bet your bottom digda.
How much is a digda? And he goes, look at this. And he opens the box of cereal, pours some cereal into Marianne's hands, and it's just cereal.
It's just poofs.
There's just poofs. There's no raisins. He goes, where are the raisins? Balky asks, confused, looking in the box. He goes, that must be in here. And he looks closer into the box until he has his head, his face in the box. At which point Larry returns. He goes, well, let's go. And then he takes a look. He goes, why does Balky have a box on his face? Marianne goes, he lost his raisins.
The crux of this scene is Balky just cannot understand why his company, the company he considers his now because he owns 1 share, would not deliver on this guarantee of 100 raisins. Why would they make this promise and then not deliver? And he's very concerned about this. He sits down at the dining room table and he starts spilling the cereal onto the table as he searches for more raisins. He's like, maybe they're at the bottom of the box. And Larry's like, we have dinner reservations. Let's go. And Balky tells him, I'm in the middle of a company crisis.
Oh, boy. He's taking this very seriously.
And so he tells Larry to take the girls to the restaurant, go to the restaurant, and he'll come to them when he's finished. And then he's just like pours the cereal out onto the table and starts counting the raisins. And he says, please let there be 100.
I mean, he is part of the company. He owns one share.
Owns 1 share.
That counts. So we transition to the next scene where time has passed. Balky has removed the cover of the stereo. The one previously he caught the flying bird in. Remember there was burnt chicken, burnt turkey in the date episode?
Yes, turkey.
No, it was turkey.
Duck. It was a duck.
That's right. And it was all burnt.
Duck all
so
around.
that same thing. But that's a different stereo. That was in a different apartment. Anyways, he turns it upside down. You have the top of the record player and empties a whole box of Raisin Poofs into it, tosses the box aside, and he starts counting the raisins as Larry enters back in frustration, wanting to know where Balky has been. He called from the restaurant. Balky didn't answer. And Larry goes, I don't know how many times I let it ring. 15, 16, as Balky's counting 12, 13, 14, 15. And it overlaps Balky's counting. And there's that thing, when you're trying to count and somebody counts, it's annoying. Stop counting when I'm counting because Balky loses his place, drops the raisins back into the cereal, and he tells Larry, he goes, cousin, I went to the store. And then he picks up the raisins, starts counting again. As we pan out, and Larry sees the living room.
We pan out and Larry looks around and realizes what the audience at the same time is realizing, which I thought was like a fun gag.
Yeah.
He realizes that Balky has in fact dumped out several boxes of Raisin Poofs all over the apartment. And there's piles of cereal and empty boxes all over this living room. And Larry hits us with a classic, oh my Lord. Balky, how many boxes of Raisin Puffs have you opened? And then Larry starts to count them. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4. And he gets to 11, 12, 13. By the time he's at 11, 12, 13, he's overlapped with Balky's counting again. And Balky is also saying 11, 12, 13 with him. So he lost his count again. And he gets frustrated. Now, that's the second time and they finished it. I would have loved to see this gag a third time in like a much heightened, very ridiculous way.
Yeah, I don't know what else. He can count something else.
And maybe they had that and it was cut for time or something.
Yeah. Or it just got repetitive. It wasn't fun.
Yeah. So Balky's like, yes, I've opened 13 boxes of Raisin Puffs. And not one of them has even close to 100 raisins.
Uh-oh.
And then he this is a very strange line to me. He says, oh, cousin, I'm so disheveled.
Yeah, I noticed that.
That's like a
collapses.
weird thing. And he puts his face into the pile of puffs in the stereo lid. And he says, my new family has been cheating the public. So we'll get back to that second point in a minute. But why I'm so disheveled? That line really didn't make sense to me. But
I mean, is disheveled means, what does it mean?
Disheveled means you're a hot mess.
Untidy, disordered. So, what does that have? What does that have to do? It's just saying I'm a mess right now.
Or was this the writers trying to have Balky say the wrong
Saying
word?
something else. Or disappointed? Maybe he was disappointed.
I don't know. It didn't.
This show. I know. I thought that was a weird word to use. Also,
I was confused about that. Anyway, the second part of that is he says, "My new family has been cheating the public," and Larry says, "Family? What family?" And Balky says, "The unicorn family." And he explains to Larry, he's like, the chairman of the board, Mr. Henry Castleman, wrote him a letter and told him he's the newest member of the family, and he brings out this ceramic animal that's very, how would you describe this thing where he kept the letter?
It's a caribou.
Caribou?
A treasure caribou. And I know there was some discussion on our Facebook group about what is this animal? It has antlers. It's
like
a caribou,
ceramic animal
it
caribou.
looks very Native American or something. I don't know. Or Aztec.
Yeah, it looks more like old
old South American. But this is where he keeps important documents in his.
So there's
caribou.
a hole coming out of the ceramic caribou, and there's a rolled up piece of paper tucked into that hole. And so he pulls out the piece of paper and shows it to Larry, and Larry says, "This is a form letter." And Balky says, "Well, it does have a nice shape."
Well, it does have a nice shape, cuz.
And Larry's like, businesses send these out, cold, impersonal companies. Families don't send letters like this. They're not your family, is what he's saying. And he's like, these companies are only interested in making money. And he said, and he tells Balky, you are letting this stock thing take over your life. This is not your responsibility.
Yeah, this is very interesting, his state of mind, because in some way he's representing a lot of people, even in the 80s. It's still that way. Nobody trusts corporations. Right. They're cold. And now you see companies trying to be human and be, personable.
At least for appearances. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still taken like 36 years and it's still kind of the same thing. Like you tell they're trying to be, but they still want to make money.
Right.
But his point of view is like, don't waste your time with businesses, corporations,
it's not your responsibility.
But Balky sees this differently. He disagrees and explains on Meepos, when you own a business, you're responsible for everything. And Larry's like, look, just sell your stock to me. Forget about everything. Balky says he can't do that. Larry offers to sell it for him. Balky again says no. Larry offers to buy it. Balky says no. Larry is just done. He's exasperated. He's hungry. He just wants to go back to the restaurant to have dinner.
Okay, so he says this thing about...
The girls are still there.
Yeah, he says this thing about, like, I'm hungry. I just want to go have dinner. But, like, how long have they been sitting there waiting for Balky? The timing doesn't make sense to me because Balky went to the store, bought a bunch of cereal boxes, counted each one.
It takes a while.
This is a long time. I thought they would have just, like, gone on and eaten without him. The dinner would be over by now. I thought they were done
and he was coming back and the dinner was over.
We're being very nitpicky here.
But Larry kind of smartly explains to Balky how corporations work here and how
because Balky is determined. Yeah, so Larry says there's nothing, and Balky's like, no, I have to make things right. I'm going to go to Unicorn and tell them that they have to stop cheating the public. And so then Larry tries to explain and like show Balky how difficult that's going to be.
And he makes a lot of good points. He goes, well, what are you going to do? They have thousands of employees. And Balky's like, I'm going to talk to the man who puts raisins in the boxes. And Larry goes, wrong. He takes his orders from the foreman. And Balky goes, well, then I'll go to his foreman. He says four men instead of foreman. And then Larry's like, and they'll send you to the plant manager. And Balky's like, well, now we're getting somewhere. And Larry's like, no, you don't get it. He goes, Unicorn is a huge corporation. They have factories all over the world. They have layers of authority. The plant manager will send you to the district manager, who will send you to the regional manager. You're going to have to talk to treasurers, controllers, assistant vice presidents, second vice presidents. And this doesn't make any difference because they all take their orders from the chairman of the board. And Balky goes, well, I'll go see him. He won't see you, Larry says. Shutting him down.
And then Balky says, why you make me go see all those other people?
To teach you a lesson, Larry tells him. He's like, this is hopeless, Balky. You are only one man with one share. They won't listen.
And Balky says, well, cousin, if you come with me, we'll be two men with one share, and then they will have to listen.
And then Larry just makes this noise. He just goes, as it fades to the commercial.
And then the scene ends and the act ends, and we never hear about this date ever again.
It doesn't matter. They got stood
how
up.
It went, what they ate.
The amount of dates that must have been ruined when these four were trying to get together, I can't even imagine. Listener, before we get to Act 3, find out what happens. There's a way you can support the show if you enjoy the show. Buy us a virtual coffee. Visit danceofjoy.com/support. You can buy us 1 coffee, 2 coffees, 3 coffees. It helps support the show. You'll get a shout out. You'll be a producer and ensure that we can continue making the show all the way through the 8 seasons of
all
Perfect
the way
Strangers.
through. We are committed, and we're going to need those coffees to get through this.
Caffeine is necessary.
Yes.
All right, Act 3, sister.
Act 3. So now it's a bit of change of scenery. We are at Unicorn.
Oh, corporate offices of Unicorn.
And Larry and Balky are at the reception desk in the outer office area of Mr. Castleman's office. And right from the opening dialogue of this act, Balky gets a little taste of how corporations work because the receptionist tells him that he can't see Mr. Castleman without an appointment, and he can only make an appointment through the appointment secretary, but he can't see the appointment secretary without an appointment.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, the little corporate runaround.
Yeah. That's how it works.
Larry wants them to give up and just leave. He wants to just give up. And he tries to bribe Balky with buying him ice cream. And then Balky he's like, Balky, I'll buy you some ice cream. Let's leave. And then Balky is tempted. And then
works.
He does this weird, full body shudder convulsion.
Fighting it.
To shake off the temptation. And then he shakes it off and snaps out of it. He's like, no, The public is being cheated, and I know Mr. Castleman will understand if we can just talk to him.
Yeah.
And then this was a very powerful line for me because Balky has learned how Larry's like mind and emotions work, right?
Mhm.
He says, "Did you come here to help me or to see me fail?"
Oh, man. 'Cause
Ouch.
sometimes it's
Very
a little bit
powerful.
of both.
Yes.
Sometimes it's one or the other. Larry does give in and agrees to help him, but he tells Balky, he goes, Balky, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to use subterfuge. And then Balky goes, well, of course we are. Don't be ridiculous. Do you have some on you? I don't know what he thinks subterfuge is. Another cologne?
Yes. Maybe.
Larry goes, no, subterfuge is just a big word for sneakiness. And they're like, yeah. And then like Balky makes a weird face.
Yeah, they
had
like
a weird
exchange some like nods and winks, but Balky's keep getting more and more exaggerated.
But they're like, okay, so they approach the receptionist and he goes, Mr. Bartokomous is a substantial stockholder. As the man exits from the office door and heads for the outer door, Balky stops him thinking this is Castleman, but it's not Castleman. He says, my name's Mr. Crocker. He's like, I'm next in line. I'm going to take over. I can help you. Larry introduces himself. He goes, I'm Larry Appleton, and this is one of your major stockholders, Balky Aristotle Bartokomous.
I like it.
Of the Mediterranean Bartokomouses. And then Balky goes, did you hear of my little island, Mipos? And Crocker goes, oh, you have an island. Well, I'm always happy to meet a major stockholder.
Yeah,
He goes
that's funny.
and sits down on the sofa, and he's like, he goes, I'm the executive vice president, soon to be top dog. This guy is gunning for Castleman's job, clearly.
Yes.
He goes, I'm going to be the top dog soon. And then Balky goes, oh, what are you now, deputy dog? It's kind of funny.
Deputy Dog, for those for our younger listeners, is a reference to a popular Terry Toons animated show from the 1960s called
old.
Deputy Dog, D-A-W-G.
This is a show that was old when we were kids.
Yes,
It's
and
an
it was
old
about
show.
a dog who was like a police.
He was
chief,
like, it was like the
police
out
deputy.
Wild West. It was
Yeah,
like the West, and he was the deputy dog.
Anyway, Crocker is a little like taken aback by that, but the scene moves on. Mr. Crocker tells Ms. Abrams is the name of the receptionist to get some coffee for these two, and he says, and use the china, because now he of course thinks Balky is this big deal stockholder. And Larry's like, well, we came here to talk to Mr. Castleman. He's like, well, I'm going to be taking over for him when he retires, so you can deal with me. And they sit down right on the couches in the reception area. And Balky basically ends up telling Mr. Crocker that they're there to talk about the raisins. And he says, there are no enough raisins in Raisin Poofs. And then Mr. Crocker's like, raisins? How many shares did you say you own? And Balky says 1. And Larry goes, 100,000. 100,000. And Balky just gives him this look. He goes, no, 1 share. And Crocker goes, 1 share? Is this a joke? And Larry tries to save it. He starts laughing. He's like, yes, it's a joke. Mr. Bartokomous is an internationally known cut-up. And Larry keeps Balky keeps trying to like explain the truth. Larry's cutting him off, telling him to stop. And Larry tries to move it along. He's like, now, if Mr. Castleman could just give us 5 minutes to Mr. Bartokomous, and then we'll be off to our dinner at the White House. And then Balky gives him this shocked look. He's like, you said we were going to be sneaky, but this is just lying.
He just nips this in the bud. He's like, no, we're not doing this.
We're not doing this because I know this is not going to end well. So Balky cuts it off, and he says to Crocker, I only have 1 share, but I think this is very important, and I want to see Mr. Castleman. Just then, Ms. Abrams comes back with this tray full of coffee, and Crocker says, forget the coffee, get security. And she puts down the coffee. She goes out the office to get the security.
So Balky's trying to explain that they're friends with Mr. Castleman. He pulls out his form letter, shows it to Mr. Crocker, scoffs at it. So Castleman sends out 1 million of these. They're written by machines. When Mrs. Abrams returns with 2 large security guards, and Crocker's like, throw these 2 out. And the physical comedy begins as the security guards grab Balky and Larry first by the arms and escort them out.
And they do take them out at the beginning.
At the first, they calmly walk them out, and Crocker closes the door, leans on the door behind him, and he's like, not enough raisins, really. Then, suddenly, the door bursts back open.
Okay, and here we get
some great physical comedy
this very
right
fast, rapid physical comedy. I'm going to try to describe it in a way that makes sense. Okay, so he closes the door. He's like, really, not enough raisins. Then a beat. Then the door busts open behind him, throwing him against the wall. Balky and Larry run back into the outer office. Balky carefully running around Ms. Abrams, who's teetering and holding this tray of coffee. Larry goes to the desk and he picks up the telephone and he hits all these buttons. Mr. Castleman, you're wanted in the outer office. Mr. Castleman, you're wanted in the outer office. At the same time, Balky's knocking on the doors of Mr. Castleman's office saying,
Mr. Castleman, you're wanted in the outer office.
Mr. Castleman, Mr. Castleman. And then the security guards run in, knocking Crocker against the wall again behind the door. Also running by Ms. Abrams, who's still teetering with that tray of coffee.
Just getting the tray
and
of coffee.
They go for Balky and Larry, who dodge them, and Balky and Larry run around them and out the front door again, and the guards chase them out again. Again, Crocker is thrown against the wall. Crocker closes the door behind them and goes, oh, for crying out loud. And then the whole thing repeats itself. They all come running back in. They knock Crocker against the wall.
Mr. Castleman, you wanted in the outer office.
They run around Ms. Abrams, who's teetering with the coffee.
Mr. Castleman!
Yes, they're banging on the door. They're calling on his phone.
Did you notice also, though, Larry, both times, right when the security guards come, before they get close to him, he goes, Balky? He does the mother's Balky.
Balky.
And they run out. And then they do it the second time. He does it. He goes, Balky. And then they start to run. But then the second time, they don't get far as they get caught by the sofa and then topple the sofa over.
They topple the sofa over. But then they like the penultimate thing in this whole physical comedy is very cartoony looking scene where Larry goes to the Castleman's office doors and he's pulling on them, and one security guard grabs Larry's by the waist and tries to pull Larry away, and then Balky grabs that security guard and then the other security guard grabs Balky, and they're all pulling each other.
Of 4 people pulling each other from the door. So funny.
Very comical. Anyway, the guards manage to pull them off. They all fall to the floor. Balky and Larry crawl around the floor and find each other and hug. And they're hanging on to each other for dear life. And in the midst of all this commotion, Mr. Castleman comes out of his office and he yells, what the hell is going on in here?
He goes, Mr. Castleman, we've come to see you. As he shows him his form letter. And Castleman's like, oh, you're one of our stockholders. And Crocker goes, he only owns 1 share. And Castleman's like, he's still a stockholder.
He calls him HC like they're buddies.
HC,
he only owns 1 share, HC.
And then he goes, he's still a stockholder, and Crocker goes, good point, HC. He's just a little man. Crocker just will agree until he can take over when the old man retires. What a suck up.
So Balky gets to the point. He says, there are no enough raisins in Raisin Puffs. And Mr. Castleman's like, what? You want more than 100? And Larry explains that there aren't 100 in a box, and Balky can prove it. And then the scene shifts, does a little time shift, same area of the outer office, but a little bit later, and we see all of the characters, the 2 security guards, Mr. Crocker, Mr. Castleman, Balky, Larry, and the receptionist. They're all sitting around this space with boxes of Raisin Poofs emptied out in piles. They're all counting raisins. And we find out that Castleman has 41 in his box. Ms. Abrams has 49. Larry has 38. Balky has 44. Well, plus the 4 he ate, which makes 48.
Wow.
No one even had 50, okay? Less than half.
Not even 50. This is hard evidence, Castleman.
And Castleman is outraged. He said, I promised the public 100 raisins in every box. Who's responsible for this? And everyone turns and stares at Crocker.
Crocker. It's all Crocker's fault because he goes, I skimped on the raisins, but I saved the company a bundle. And Castleman's like, put those raisins back and apologize to Balky. And Crocker sheepishly does apologize. And Balky, this is great. Balky goes, oh, it's okay. He goes, to forgive is divine. To be an airhead is human. Which is pretty funny.
Which he means to say is to err is human.
But also the saying is, you say that part first. You say to err is human, but to forgive is divine.
Forgive is divine.
He flipped it and made it an airhead. It's so good. And then so Crocker and the guards leave, and Castleman's like, why my daughter married that nitwit? I'll never know. So that's now we know how Crocker got the job.
Yes.
He's not qualified.
And poor Ms. Abrams, who has been trying to offer people coffee the whole time.
Want coffee?
tries again, and they all say no thank you. And she goes, I don't know why I bother, and leaves with the coffee.
She made all this coffee. You could never get anybody to drink it.
And then Crocker also had left with the guards. So now we just have Balky, Larry, and Castleman. And Castleman says, I'm really glad you brought this to my attention, son. And Balky is kind of proud. He looks at Larry because Larry's like, they're not your family. And Balky goes, he called me son.
Yeah.
And then Castleman says, a lot of people think business is cold and impersonal. All we're interested in is making a buck. And this is, of course, what Larry had also thought.
He goes, I'm a fun guy. He goes, Balky asked Castleman to sign his form letter to get like his signature. And then I love this. Castleman is like, you guys ever been and seen the Chicago from a helicopter? And they go, no. And he goes, too bad. He walks away. And then he turns around and he goes, look, I'm kidding. I could be a fun guy. What do you say we
just
go
because
buzz?
I'm rich doesn't mean I'm fun.
Because I'm rich doesn't mean I'm fun. What do you say we go buzz at the Kellogg factory? So, and then we don't see it because it cuts to them back at the apartment. Yeah. So I imagine they went on a fun helicopter ride of Chicago with Castleman.
Well, we know it was fun because back at the apartment, and I think this is lesson time. We don't have lesson time music in this episode, but I think it starts here. They're back at the apartment and they're talking about how much fun they had with Mr. Castleman. So it sounds like it was a good time. And Balky says, the best part was that thanks to you, he's saying to Larry, the best part was that thanks to you, America is going to have raisins coming out of her ears. And Larry's like, you know, he pushes back. He says, I was the guy who said one man couldn't make a difference, and I was wrong about that. And Balky tries again. He says, well, yes, you did, but you were also the man that says, if you want to change something, you've got to go to the top guy.
But Larry goes, no, I think I said if you get to the top guy, he'd throw you out.
And Balky says, well, you did, but you were also the man that says, you've got to use subterfuge. And Larry says, which didn't work at all.
Yeah, Larry is kind of useless in this whole thing here.
And then Balky's like, you're not going to let me say anything nice about you, are you? And then Larry's like, okay, go on. Balky's like, I'm done. That's it. And then Larry's like, can you repeat it one more time?
Like,
I missed it.
I missed it, yes. But I love this. He goes, Cousin, it's simple. If you hadn't told me what not to do, I would never have known what I should have been doing. And because you came with me to stop me from doing what I wanted to do but should not have been doing, I was able to do what had to be done even though you didn't want me to do it.
What a great line.
That is fantastic reasoning. And Larry is even more, and he does this eyebrows. He's like, I'm glad I can help. But then both of them are like, did you really help? As the credits roll. Yeah, roll credits.
They're both confused and the credits rolled.
It was a good one, kind of straightforward. I think overall my first impression after watching this was like, this is just like an okay episode, It's a little bit fillery. He does learn about American corporations, though, and learns a lesson.
Yeah, it was, to me, it just felt like a tool to get these guest stars on it, Mr. Castleman. I mean, there was some funny physical comedy, some funny lines, and I think at the end of the day, like, it just was, the lesson was more about the Balky-Larry relationship. And how
Larry's always wrong. You should just listen to Balky to begin with and never second guess him. So Castleman, Jeff Corey, did a great job in this episode. He's very commanding this role, and you buy it. And you've seen this guy everywhere. He'd worked from like the 60s to the late 90s on TV and movie. And I remember seeing this guy everywhere. I didn't know this dude has a place in history. He testified at the House Committee Un-American Activities hearing, the McCarthy hearings, but did not give over any names to the committee to preserve his career, which caused him to be blacklisted for a while.
Because he was an admitted former communist.
Yeah, but he didn't snitch on anyone else, ruining anybody else's career. Kind of took a hit, but came back late 60s, and it didn't really hurt him because he acted all the way through the next few decades.
And he passed away in 2002.
Yeah, he was an acting coach, but I love him. He's a great character actor. The security guards, also Gene LaBelle and Greg Collins, were stuntmen on Full House, and they were wrestlers and judo champions, and they made a couple of appearances. Greg Collins made a couple of appearances in Full House and Family Matters.
Okay, so this is all like a repeat cruise. This is the first time we talk about raisin poofs, but we are going to see them again in future episodes. And
Raisin
also, we
poofs.
had this like weird treasure caribou sculpture
It's a
thing.
caribou.
It's a hollow ceramic animal. I don't know. I think we might see this caribou again later, but there's like no explanation or discussion about it.
The stock market bit reminded me of that project. I don't know if some of you guys did this in junior high. It was the stock market simulation project where you would pretend to invest with like fake money with the real stock market.
I did it, and I remember being terrible at it. I had no idea what was happening
I was
or
really
how
bad at
any
it
of it
too.
worked, and I still don't.
And I kind of regret it because, look, back then, if it was the late 80s, can you imagine, had we bought Apple stock, Adobe stock, or even Netflix when it first came out? Oh my God, we're idiots.
Also,
what are we
these
doing?
days, I just read an article about how younger and younger people, like junior high school kids, young
They're making
people
money.
under
They're
30 are like,
figuring it out.
a lot of them are doing investing.
Okay, well,
like real
look,
investing.
save that for PS today. But yeah, that's the way I was like, I'm just like, I wish that the bug stuck with me or they maybe enforced it because that's something I think it is important to get into young that wasn't an important thing when we were younger to have us understand. You just had to figure it out. I don't know.
Okay, another thing we have to figure out in this episode is the front door
Why does the
Larry's
door move?
apartment.
What is going on?
What are we talking about?
Yes. Okay. 4 episodes in, sister. Here's what I've noticed.
What have you noticed?
Season 3, this episode 4, and episode 1, the first episode, the door, we mentioned the layout. The front door to the apartment is all the way to the left of the fireplace. So it's door, fireplace, closet, hallway. Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, we failed to mention the last 2 weeks of the episodes 2 and 3.
We totally missed it until we went
it.
back.
Yeah, and then when I thought of Olivia Crawford at the door, I was like, wait a minute. Those episodes, the door is to the right of the fireplace where the closet is.
And we have no idea where the closet is.
The closet maybe now is where the door was on the other. I don't know, but the door keeps moving.
Okay, the door keeps moving. What one theory about this is that there are 3 episodes in this season in which the front door is to the far left of the fireplace, to the left of the fireplace. So as in this episode and episode 1. So there's one more coming somewhere. I think the rest of them are with the front door to the right of the fireplace.
So the rest of the season
we'll have to keep an eye out for where the closet ends up being.
The door is on the right of the fireplace mostly. Yeah.
So one theory is that these 3 episodes may have been filmed at some time, at a different time, like before they filmed the rest of the season.
Yeah, must have been.
There was a writer's strike around that time, so maybe they pre-filmed a few episodes in anticipation of that.
That's
or
possible.
Or maybe it was like a preview of what the new format with the new apartment and the newspaper office, etc., would look like. So maybe they filmed 3 of them before and then intermix them, hoping no one would notice when they aired.
I mean, did they rebuild that whole wall? I'm wondering if the fireplace is different. I'll have to look closer.
Yeah.
But
so we'll pay more attention, and I, for one, will be on the lookout for where the closet ends up landing.
So there's one more episode, I think, where the door is to the left, the rest of them will be to the right. It's confusing, and I was like, wait a minute. If you notice something is weird watching this episode, the door moves. Yes, the door moves around.
Yes, the door does move. You are right.
But something that hasn't changed is Dimitri appearances still.
Actually, Dimitri has changed also in this
that's
episode.
right. He has. He looks a little bit different, doesn't
Dimitri's wool coat is white in this episode. We see Dimitri on the coffee table to the right of the couch a few times during the beginning, but his face is still gray, but the fur is the wool coat is white.
I wonder how many Dimitris they had. They must have had a couple. You're gonna get some backups.
Yeah, but up till now, Dimitri's been like all gray all over. So
and not really tied into the episode. He's just kind of sitting there with like a white.
Yeah, there's
coat
no.
on.
I mean, there's no. What kind of costume would you put on him for a stock market?
For a stock
or
market,
raisin poofs. He could be like eating a.
Oh, he could have been eating cereal
a
or
bowl of raisin poofs or something.
Or had money around him. How did Dimitri get money? What's going on? Some pretty good Balkyisms in here, like no skin off my head, no skin off my back.
Yeah, Snow White and her 7 dorks.
Dorks. An hour ago, I was a babe in the woodpile.
Yeah, and then
Almost
he says
there.
the foreman for men. I'll go see his 4 men. He asked Crocker if he used to be deputy dog or if he's deputy dog now.
And then he called him an airhead. To be an airhead is human.
To forgive is divine. To be an airhead is human. Yes. Don't be ridiculous is said twice in this.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
Of course it is. And then we got you tried to fool Balky. And then we got both of them going, hi.
And we have one. Oh my Lord.
That's my favorite.
Okay, now it's time for Perfect Strangers Today, the segment of our show in which we discuss if this story were happening today, how would things be different? And we've mentioned it before. We often resort to talking about social media in this segment, but it's very apt. That's the only thing I could think of for this episode, because today, if you wanted to call out a company for having wronged the public, you would just send a tweet very publicly shaming the company, right? Or you would leave a bad Yelp review, or you would make a TikTok video about while you were counting the raisins.
Yes, you would make a video going, count your raisins, America. We can't let them get away with this.
Hashtag count your raisins.
Hashtag count the raisins. Raisin poofs is a scam.
So on the one thing, it would be about how to shame the company, right?
Yeah.
And you would do it very publicly now.
Listen, companies do have to be a lot more transparent. They still do stuff like this where they promise one thing and they don't do it, even though they say they're not doing it. But I think it's harder because you got to be really transparent.
Well, I often see reviews on Amazon where there's like an item that's supposed to have X number of ounces of product in it, and then people in the reviews will be like, I measured this out and it's not that many ounces. I could see like raisin poofs on Amazon and users, the reviews. Oh my God,
bad Amazon reviews would do it. Absolutely.
There's only 34 raisins in my box.
And then the other thing, a lot of cats my age and younger, now we were just talking about this, they all have dabbled in, first thing being the stock market with apps like Robinhood or E-Trade, and these things making it very easy to take a little bit of money. In fact, there was that big story about GameStop and how these guys kind of screwed over the hedge fund guys and pulled a move that they were going to do before them and made a lot of money before the hedge fund guys could mess things. So that was fantastic. It was like the little guy getting back at these hedge fund Wall Street guys.
Yeah, and then it's a lot more than stocks that you can trade in these days. Now we have all sorts of things. We have Bitcoin, we have cryptocurrencies.
This is the future.
We have NFTs, non-fungible tokens. You can trade in
fungible people.
You can trade in like GIFs and memes. And
I have no idea
tweets.
What this is about, but there are teenagers selling JPEGs of cartoon cats for thousands of dollars. I don't understand this.
Selling the quote-unquote originals of these
video
things.
clips, but this is the hot new investable commodity in an open, blockchain registry market. It's wild. It's a completely different model. We'll still see where this leads, but there'll always be the stock market. But this is crazy what's happening.
And what would
now.
be in a modern episode of this show would be Larry trying to explain.
Some Dogecoin.
Yes, Larry trying to
He's like, oh no, cousin, you need Ethereum, not Dogecoin.
Or he would say Dogecoin wrong. I don't even know if that's how you say it, but
douche.
But can you imagine Larry trying to explain what an NFT is to Balky?
Well, cousin, why did they make them fungible to begin with?
And Balky making some pun off the word, but that's very fungible.
It's very fungible. I'm a fungible guy.
I put the fun in fungible.
He puts the fun non-fungible token. I'm the token non-fungible.
That
doesn't even make sense. I don't know what that means. But yeah, it's so weird, and I just feel old when these kids are making all this money, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on.
Kids are going to be rich, and we're going to die.
Whoa. Poor. Yeah, well, it happens. All right, let's move on. We usually do have a report, Balky does, with our friend Rainey. We don't have one this week.
Oh, no, Rainey, we miss you.
What are we talking about?
Well, she said she wasn't feeling it, and I don't blame her. Like we said, it's an okay episode. You do have 2 vests. You have opening sequence vest, which is the one he wears when he's petting the horse in the opening sequence.
Yes.
And then the Godiva chocolate vest.
Which is the red and black one, right?
Yes. And then she does say he does have a little gold kind of sort of bolero tie at one point, but otherwise I think it's a Balky dud. So
Balky dud dud.
Listen, they're not all going to have great vests, but it's always great to get some kind of words from Rainey. We do have some shout outs and some comments from our listeners about this episode.
Yeah, we have our friend John from Colorado, who also gave us the correct pronunciation of his last name. I hope I'm going to say it right, but let me know. I think it's John Adama.
But he says, I'm also fine with Cousin John. I think we should call all our listeners cousins. Okay. But look, John, thanks for letting us know how your name is pronounced. Here's the thing. On my other show, the Jock and Nerd podcast, I have a lot of fun butchering people's names. My name, John, is Imran. So I think I've earned now.
You have not earned anything. Everyone's name deserves to be respected.
I've earned the right to butcher people's names for fun purposes and entertainment. Maybe. Because I've had that's my whole life. People figure out what my name is. It was hilarious.
Okay, John Adama, our cousin John from Colorado.
Yay.
Wrote a bunch of comments. We're just going to read a few of them. One is Larry doesn't seem particularly helpful when he just throws the stock page open and tells Balky to pick one. He seems determined to help Balky lose his money ASAP.
Yes, just like in Vegas. I mean, you can't just give someone the stock page and goes, hey, pick a stock. Anyway, what are you doing?
John also particularly loved the typhoon bit, which he said was a genuinely funny surprise. Agreed.
I know what that is, cousin. Cut me some slack.
John noticed the front door moving. We talked about that. We talked about the caribou.
Treasure
caribou. And then John says the four men pulling on the door deserved a longer shot that was cartoonishly funny.
Yes, I agree. They could have held a little bit longer. It was very quick.
Yeah. Maybe they cut it for time, but it was very, very funny. And it did look exactly like a cartoon. John also says that Jeff Corey, who we talked about, who is Mr. Castleman, acted for over 6 decades. He was in a Universal monster movie called Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
That's one of the old school monster movies. That guy's a legend. He's been in everything.
And then finally, John points out that from a business standpoint, it might actually be cheaper and more realistic to just remove the 100 raisin guarantee from the box. But actually, the way I saw the scene, like Castleman is proud of what he offers his customers, right?
Yeah,
the people. Yeah. He doesn't want a cheaper option. He wants to, in fact, give people 100 raisins in every box.
He wants to give them, no matter if it costs too much. And Bucky wouldn't have learned a lesson, but that is a good point.
But fair point, it'll be cheaper to just
put at least 45 raisins in each box. That's what you put on there.
Put a sticker over it. Yeah. That's even cheaper.
Thanks for all the comments, John. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. We love these comments. Next week, join us as we talk about Balky and Larry going on a grocery shopping spree.
Visit our website, listener, danceofjoypod.com. It has all the information you need. All the links on how to subscribe, how to get in touch, how to support the show,
how to buy merch.
How to leave a voicemail, how to email us, and all our social media. It's all there. You just got to go one-stop shop if you want more.
danceofjoypod.com.
And most importantly, share the show with a friend. Share it with someone you want to do the Dance of Joy with.
Buy a t-shirt for your boyfriend's birthday.
Oh, that's a great idea. Makes a great gift. Thank you for listening. And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy. We do the Dance of Joy. Hey, 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 hey.